In the last video, we looked at the awesome risk table in Formwork, I'm slightly biased, and how it helps you understand risk management based on the ISO 14971. However, we skipped over all sorts of optional fields which we still need to understand and fill out to actually have a risk analysis which is compliant with the standard. So the first field we'll be looking at today is actually failure modes, because failure modes are kind of like, I guess, important to understand, and they're really easy to understand. So it's a pretty good and satisfying video to watch, I think, because the explanation is really, really simple, and we might be done after 2 minutes. We'll see. So quick recap, we created this risk table entry here, and it looks super nice. You see on the left side the things which happen, moving to the right, like we have wrong medical text being displayed, blah, 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 a few things happen, and then you have worsening of depression of a patient, for example. So this is an example. Now, on the left side, we also have something called failure modes, and it is empty. So what's going on here? If we look at this risk table entry, we have a sequence of things: hazards, hazardous situation, and harm, and one thing leads to another. And failure modes are also something you need to document. And the really good news is that failure modes are very simple, very easy to understand, because they are simply one, in the sequence, they're just like one step to the left, like they're one prior step leading to hazards. And another good explanation of failure modes is they are technical, whereas hazards and hazardous situations tend to be non-technical. So I guess this is like a pretty terrible example, because this is a bit technical, like wrong medical text is displayed in the app. But you could actually rename this to user finds, or user is exposed to wrong medical text in the app, right? So this is not necessarily technical. Oh man, I'm creating an AI description. Okay, wow, awesome, man, Formwork AI features. Save this. So this is not necessarily technical, right? So the user is exposed to wrong text, they believe the wrong text, and then they have worsening of depression. Just to make this distinction more clear, that mostly this stuff is non-technical in the risk table. However, failure modes are technical. And what is the obvious failure mode here? If we want to like explain incorrect text, maybe literally like a software bug, like showing incorrect text, like maybe text rendering or whatever, right? Like incorrect text is rendered in the app. And then save this for now. Can we save it? Yeah. And then, oh wait, do we have to link this? Oh yeah, we actually have to link it to the hazard, otherwise it's missing a link, right? Okay. So that's the basic idea, right? So like you have like incorrect text being rendered in the app, and that leads to the patient kind of like being exposed to like incorrect text, and then you have worsening of depression. Is this like a perfect example? No, it's actually not, because like if we look at the risk table, like we have this situation with the user being exposed to wrong text, that likely is not going to actually have a technical issue. That likely will have more of like a content issue, right? You have like maybe content in the app which is not reviewed by like a physician, for example, and then regardless of how it's rendered, the user might be exposed to it or not. So that's not the perfect example. So let's look for another example which might be actually more interesting. How about this one? Someone gets stressed because the app crashes repeatedly. That's a really easy one. So create a new failure mode, app crashes. And yes, it can be like that generic. And then we create the risk table entry for someone gets stressed, app crashes repeatedly. Man, and this is kind of like we have to start inventing stuff here, because this is getting hair-raising, and that's because we have to document so much stuff, and that's because of the standard. Yeah, full stop. So what are the last two things which happens before someone gets stressed? Like maybe first like the app crashes, and then maybe like the user like wants to use the app, but the app is not available. So that's like the hazardous situation. User wants to use app, but it's not available. And then the hazard would be like app becomes unavailable. And again, this is risk analysis. There's an infinite amount of possibilities how you could document this, but this is, I guess, like my way of doing it. Okay, app becomes unavailable. User wants to use the app, but it's not available. how high is the probability of one thing leading to another? This probability is 100%, I would say, right? App becomes unavailable. User obviously wanted to use the app. Harm is the acute stress reaction. How high is it for a person to get an acute stress reaction if you wanted to use the app but it's not available? I would say maybe 10% save it. I mean, not everyone kind of like becomes very stressed because an app crashes. Okay, so by the way, Formwork did some calculations. This is acceptable based on our risk matrix, but I won't go into detail here. I actually wanted to have the failure mode, right? So you have the failure mode, the app crashes, and now we just need to link this failure mode to the hazard, app becomes unavailable. And that's it. That's it. Failure modes are very easy. Failure modes are really just like what goes wrong or what can go wrong on a technical level, and then you link them up to your hazards. And again, your hazards are these entry points. They are the things on the leftmost side in your risk table, and then you analyze it from there. That's literally all there is. I mean, there are like now 1,000 questions you could ask me. One is like, do you need a failure mode for each hazard? The answer is no. Like technically, you could even do risk analysis without failure modes. You could even have just a few failure modes. You could just have like one failure mode, like the app crashes or becomes unavailable. Usually there just aren't that many failure modes, not that many relevant ones. I mean, your code can crash in a million different ways, but usually the result is kind of like always the same. The app is like slow to respond, or it becomes unavailable, or it kind of like screws up the data and changes the data, that sort of stuff, but you just don't have that many failure modes. So like I would aim for maybe 5 or so if you want to stay pragmatic and minimalistic. And for each of these failure modes, you should link them to at least one hazard. And then again, you analyze these hazards here. That's all there is. Cool. So that was very easy to understand, hopefully. Now your task is like document some failure modes. And again, this is technical on a technical level. What can go wrong with your app? Talk to your developers, but don't delegate this to your developers because they tend to not have a lot of regulatory knowledge because they're busy building stuff. So kind of like you get a feeling for what failure modes might be possible in your software or your hardware device, and then enter them here. Again, aim for a maximum of 5 for now if you're building a device from scratch. If you're a larger manufacturer with a hyper complex device, you might have more, but in my experience, that's just a weird excuse. Usually you don't have that much. All right, so document the failure modes. In the next few videos, we'll be talking about other stuff, which we also have to catch up on to finish our risk table. All right, see you in the next video.